welcome to another episode of Date Night with the Heilicks. We are your hosts, Eric and Dr. Sakeisha Heilig of Marriage Can Win, and we are so excited to have you with us this evening. We have a dynamic guest with us, and remember, our topic for this evening is dating after divorce. We've had so many of you reach out to us when we're talking about date night, and you inquired, how do you transition into dating if you've been through a divorce? So guess what? We connected with a dynamic speaker who is going to be transparent. She's bold, she's real, raw, and relevant. And we're going to talk a little bit about dating after divorce. So everybody, I want you to join with me and welcome me to the Dating with the Heilicks. Welcome, Miss Tierra, Destiny, Reid. Tierra, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing awesome. Hey, guys.
How are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm excited to be here with you both.
Awesome. Why don't you take a couple moments and just share with our listeners a little bit about you? Because I know how fabulous you are, but we want our listeners to just recognize exactly who we have on our show this evening.
You are too much. Well, again, my name is Tierra Destiny Reid. I am the mother of two. I have an 11-year-old daughter, Kylie, and a 14-year-old son, Bryson. I am actively co-parenting, so I'm very blessed to have an amazing co-parent, very active. I am an author of The Power of Peace and a Pause and recently published Married, Divorced, and Dating. So my platform is tierradestinyreid.com and whenwomenheal.com.
Wow, that is amazing. And I am sure a lot of our listeners out there are like, oh, so she's been through what we're going through, so they can really identify with where you are. And one of the things that you said to me that was so key, you said you have an amazing co-parent, because we have singles who are getting back into the dating field, but that could be one of their barriers because of co-parenting. They're concerned about the impact it may have on the children, and when should I introduce who I'm dating to my children. So there's so many dynamics that come into play when you're thinking about dating after divorce, correct?
Exactly.
All right. So just tell us a little bit. Well, we've actually talked about the fact that you're an entrepreneur, you're an author. I don't even recall you telling them about what a powerful motivational speaker you are, and
not
how
to
you empower women.
Not to mention that we know her as T.
Now you know what?
She's also a good friend of ours and a good coach.
Yeah,
I try to keep it short and sweet. I try to keep it short and sweet, guys. I just appreciate you all for really being there. I feel that God connected us at such divine time, because I was going through my divorce when we connected, and through helping you all publish and build the initial stages of the platform, I was reading your amazing content, and I was looking at myself like, oh, this is where I was really good, but this is where I needed a lot of work. So you guys are the real deal, and that's why I was really excited about our interview today.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Now,
I want to put in a PSA. Coach T is the one that helped us get started with our first book, Marriage Can Win. She coached us through the whole thing. She helped motivate us. So that's just how special she is.
Yeah, there were times where, totally transparent, I just wanted to give up. And she was like, nope, you guys, you're almost there. And she would just always have encouraging words. So we encourage you guys to get connected with her. And it's going to be a dynamic experience. If you want a coach that's going to push you outside your comfort zone, that's not going to patty cake you, but will encourage you at the same time, make sure you connect with her.
Thank you, guys. Well, we've definitely moved more deeper into the publishing. So you all really came on board when we were filling it out, starting out. So now we've expanded, it's grown. We may need to run that book back through our editorial team now. We have some heavy hitters on the team now. Thank you guys for bearing with us as we were trying to find our way. And it's really been the calling that God had for me as an entrepreneur to really get serious about the lane of publishing to help people who are speakers or people who just have awesome advice or life experience that they could share and actually publish for their legacy. So
Wow.
yeah, we've grown. We've tripled during the quarantine. Our team has
Wow.
grown.
That's awesome.
And they have been like, we need to even send your book back through editorial. So I'm like, okay, we contact everybody and just make sure we do a triple check through content. But it's interesting because going through the divorce can be a very emotional time. And so publishing allowed me to isolate a little bit, focus on healing, read rich content. And you guys, your content was one of the manuscripts that I was reading and really helping to educate myself.
Okay. Well, good. Well, now, Coach T, tell us a little bit about you. Now, like, tell us, like, how long were you married? Tell us about kids.
Okay. So I actually got married, guys, my last semester of college at the University of Georgia. I think it's about 22. And my ex-husband at the time was actually stationed in Germany. So we met in high school, we dated long distance. We were courting long distance and got married, and then he moved home. So I just think that's important to note because there was never that day-to-day interaction right before you get married to someone, which is such a huge decision. So I do have some advice to share today, but I was married 12 years. And we, like I said, we had 2 children together. So we both parent Kylie and Bryson. And since the divorce, our co-parenting has been weekly because we are both very active. We have decided not to move out of state. We've both turned down opportunities out of state that would have required us to move. And we remained committed to keeping them as our number one priority.
Okay, so then there was some give and take, and so looking out for the best interest of the children.
Yeah, with me and things that I've done with media and different opportunities with my business being virtual, I could pretty much relocate anywhere. With the military, there's been things that have come up that could have required him to move. And yes, we've remained committed to staying geographically close for the sake of the children.
Wow. So, in your experience, what's been the greatest challenge that the two of you may have experienced, or you may have experienced, as far as dating after divorce?
You know what? I think one of the biggest challenges was me over functioning when I actually found someone that was worth really concentrating on. And just real me, I don't what do they call it? I don't serial date. Or I did in the past. I might try it, but I think that being married, you got to understand that someone who gets married in college, I just completely bypassed dating as an adult. So I was married in college, which means that coming out of that marriage, the men that I dated were almost treated like husbands, and that's a big mistake in my opinion.
Wow.
Okay.
Because I don't know, I'm not doing I didn't learn. I'm green. That's what they say. I was green. So I think that's what guys like about me because it wasn't about what can I get and, the mind games and this and that. I'm like cooking and we're talking about vision and I'm so serious and not everybody's in that mindset. So that was a challenge for me. To realize you're not married, you're dating, and I had to learn a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I did not guard my heart very well. I jumped in too soon. And I think that people really bypass the healing process and the importance of the self-love journey.
Wow. Yeah, you will call what I call the good girl. See, the good girl who was sincere, was green, didn't know the game, because you missed that college girl gone wild stage. You were just a good girl. Good, wholesome, clean girl. Kind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right, publicly, yeah. And so, I'm very free spirited with my boyfriend. You know what I mean?
Of
And
course,
so yeah, so you I think I made that mistake even in college. Like
Mhm.
I was the person in college with my own dorm room, with a pantry in my dorm room, cooking in the kitchen, not, like, so I've always kind of been in that mindset, but I don't think that I embrace the importance of getting to know me,
Right.
loving me, pouring all of that into me. I associated loving someone else and taking good care of someone else with a part of my identity.
Oh, so would one of your suggestions be to a young lady that may be in college and she's contemplating marriage? Would you suggest that, you just continue dating for a while? Or what would your suggestion be to a person, in college that's dating?
It's twofold.
Okay.
So my number one piece of advice would be to allow if you find a gentleman that you feel that God is really sending that could be your husband,
Mhm.
I still advise someone to um, get through school and have some time to yourself.
All right.
Live on your own for a little while.
Mhm.
Be Pour into your self-awareness, self-identity, and self-love journey. And I'm only saying that because I personally feel like if it's really who God has for you, He's not going to go away because you're loving yourself. He's not going to go away because you may be healing from some things in the past. I don't think that we are encouraged to think about that. We're just encouraged that, when this person appears in our life, that we'll figure it out together. But then I think sometimes the marriages and relationships suffer because there's a baggage or pain that comes in that we can't even identify or articulate. And we're expecting a spouse to help us figure it out, or expecting a spouse to um, fill those voids for us. So I would recommend a young person, and it's not even really about age. I would just recommend someone that has not committed to a chapter, a season of their life of healing, of self awareness. I just think that's so important because the woman I am now, coming into a relationship, is a woman that I respect and admire, and I don't feel like I'm pulling so much from someone else. I'm able to contribute.
Okay. Now that's really, really good information. Lots of nuggets of wisdom because we get people that reach out to us all the time and they're going through the dating process and they ask us questions like because mindsets have shifted now when it comes to dating. It's not like it was when Eric and I were
oh
dating.
gosh, no.
The women. I mean, we have women that are asking us, well, how much money should I spend on a date, or is it okay for me to pick him up? And I'm kind of like my mind is blown because there's a shift. Things are totally different. You hear, you hear people talking about things that younger ladies are doing, like you Uber a man to your house and then pay for
Wow.
him to go back. And you're
Yeah,
like, and my mind is blown. It's like, you did what?
yeah.
And not to judge anyone, but it's
Right.
just like,
It's just different,
it's
totally
different.
different.
I never would have
Women,
thought of that.
women are more aggressive and more bold,
Yeah.
and even now, I found that at least the younger generation
Mhm.
in the teens and the early 20s, you don't even have to have a relationship when you talk about having sex.
Yeah.
It's just free. It's like, oh yeah, and it's not. You don't have to be like, you're my boyfriend, girlfriend. We exclusive before we look at talking about sex. That's a whole different story there.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I do have opinions as it relates to the topic of sex. Even when I was young, I did want to wait because I was taught, I did hear women that I admire, and in my mind, it was just wait. And a lot of times we hear people say wait, but I don't think we really speak beyond the
Mhm.
religious reasons of
Right.
waiting till you're married or saving yourself. Now I am someone that actually I practice abstinence, guys.
Oh,
So I that's one of the biggest decisions that I made.
mhm.
And I would say that that is my advice to not just women, it's to young men. And I think that we always encourage women to
Right.
save their bodies, and we associate that with being pure or
Mhm.
saving yourself for marriage. But
Mhm.
for me, I really think it goes deeper into also soul ties, Also your broken heart, the damage, the baggage. Now you're going to bring when God does send the right spouse for you. Now you still have soul ties. Now, when you go through issues in that relationship, you're still leaning back on this person outside of your relationship for emotional support because the soul ties were never broken. They're not talking about that. They're not cutting off contact. And now it's just like this web of all these connections and lingering spiritual ties and relationships. And so, one thing that I've had to do while dating since being divorced is actually have some intentional conversations with the few boyfriends that I had. The one boyfriend, well, two, the puppy love relationships in high school, and then the couple that I had in college before my marriage. I wish I had done those things before I got married because those things definitely impacted my marriage. And so now in dating, someone dating or courting me is not coming into any of that because the work has been done. But how many times do we encourage people to take the time not to just heal and cry and journal, but to correct your wrongs, swallow those hard pills about yourself. Ask yourself, why were you reaching for certain relationships? What void were they filling? And also, what role did you play in the any toxic relationships? Why did you allow it? Were you your own predator, not just the victim? So it's hard for people to take a hard look in the mirror. I've had to do that. And it's made me a better person. I'm still growing, but that's a big piece of it when I think about sex without marriage. You're really putting yourself in a vulnerable place. No one owes you anything because you chose to give your body to them. How much do you value your body? And so if someone can just have sex with you and you are fine with the soul ties, then just know that sometimes down the road there are repercussions and consequences emotionally, self-esteem wise. A lot of these things are impacted, and I do believe that we're jeopardizing really recognizing and identifying that kingdom marriage that we are to have. Before I got married, I was having sex with my ex-husband and I knew it was wrong. And we had a conversation about spirituality and being saved. And he was honest to say he was not there yet and that his parents weren't there before they got married. But guess what? That they worked through it. Their marriage has survived. And I just start thinking, but guess what? Honestly, if I had the maturity level enough to raise that conversation and still move forward, that's something that I have to take accountability for. So a lot of times I think with the dating after divorce, people are sometimes looking so quickly to replace or fill a spot that they're not coming fully who that God created them to be so that they would attract the person that will value them for the right reason.
Absolutely.
That is so true.
So many people are right now, I'm going to speak to women on social media, are really presenting themselves to me like worms on a hook. And I'm not to degrade anyone, but what you lead with is what you're going to attract. And it's going to always be someone sexier than you, more beautiful than you. And if that's the only thing that this man falls in love with, then you're going to be dealing with that for the rest of your life.
See, that was exactly what we talked about on our previous episode. We were talking about, I was talking about from the man's perspective, right? You're looking at the women and the single women, and you always see them talking about, and they shooting in behind and cleavage is here. And I'm like, okay, they're not married. So now when as a man looking at that, okay, yeah, I'm looking, yes, she's sexy, she got nice this, nice that. But then that's all I'm looking at, and that's she advertising sex. That's all I'm thinking about. That's all I want to do is have sex with her. I don't even know what kind of characteristic or what kind of person she is.
Okay.
Right.
And I was talking about, we were talking about, so a man goes after this woman and have sex with her on the first date. And then the next day he finds out he got a dud. She has no personality, no character. She does not have any smarts. She's just sexy. So
You know what? And then on the flip side of that, as to wives, I know you guys have a huge following of women who are still married, and hopefully they can work through it and not be divorced if it's the marriage that God put together, because I have a whole opinion on that. Some people are choosing who they want, not waiting on who God has. So, you want us to fix something that you did yourself. But
Right.
let's just talk about those people who are married that God did join them, and they're just going through a rough spot, a rough season. Sex is important. That's what I love about you guys. You talk about it on your platform, you put it in your book, you talk about keeping it spicy. So many times, the reason I said self love is important, and if you're dating after divorce, focus on self love, and that's what I'm doing and learning even more. Is that you have to feel sexy for yourself. You have to keep it sexy. We can't say because I'm having all these responsibilities as a wife, I'm not doing my hair, or, my hygiene, or keeping it sexy for myself. There was a quote, or something that I read, and I just had to be honest with myself, because you guys know I've been really on my health journey for a minute, and I fluctuate. And I think part of that got me was the question said, if you had to be stuck with yourself the way you are with no improvement, whether it's weight, personality, career, just everything, if you just had to be stuck where you are with no improvement for the rest of your life, would you be happy with that? And it really made me think about, what would I want to change? What would I want to work on? And if I wouldn't want to be stuck with this in each area, if my answer is truthfully no, why would I be insecure or offended if a spouse or someone I'm dating doesn't either? But then people can't have honest conversations. And so I just think before we get into dating, that introspection is so important.
That is so true. You have to, and that's why I know a lot of people say, well, you complete me, or I'm 50 and you're 50. But like you're saying, before you really begin to date someone, especially when you're looking to get serious and get married, you yourself need to be 100% whole
Yeah.
and know your identity of who you are before you try to join with another person, you know.
I mean, there were times when, I can speak to it because I was married for 12 years. There were times when my hair is a mess. I'm thinking I'm doing great because I'm up early. I'm cooking. I'm making sure that everybody has food to eat. I'm making sure the kids have what they need for school. I'm asking my ex-husband about what he has going on with work. Yeah, we're great project managers, but that does not excuse your own self love, your own self care, your hygiene, and being sexy. Now, if you weren't sexy coming into it, and that's just what you choose to do, no judgment. But I'm just saying we can't come in one way and then neglect ourselves and then justify it by saying, I have all these other responsibilities. What dating after divorce does, when you take a pause from dating to after our we've been disappointed, and we look at ourselves and say, wait, I'm trying to replace self-love with companionship.
Yeah.
Let me do the hard work. What does that look like now when I'm managing my house and focusing on my goals and the kids and dating? I have active wear that's still presentable and it's still sexy, or just matching active wear when you have a busy day, not wholly t-shirts and just looking grungy or whatever, just because you feel like, oh, I already have this spouse. And that can go for men too. Just taking care of yourself and knowing what you need is so important, because when your self-esteem is up and your confidence is up, it really does impact the energy within the house. And I think that also leads into just boundaries and guardrails. When we build up our self-esteem and our needs, I think our standards change.
That's really, really important, because that's a key concept. Because I was thinking, as a professional woman and you're dating after divorce, do you find yourself like being unwilling to find yourself just not wanting to settle in certain areas, or do you find yourself establishing greater boundaries?
Yes. So I would say that I intentionally have done a lot of self work to shift my mindset. So
Okay.
at first, and because marriage is still something that's important to me,
Okay.
and I never want to be the successful woman that's wearing a S on her chest and a cape. I'm not that person. So
Yeah.
yes, I am very successful, but I don't lead with that.
Okay.
I'm very humble. I'm actually very submissive in my relationships, which is very surprising to people. But for me, what which was very awesome to hear with the last gentleman that I dated seriously,
Mhm.
that he felt like a king, was never disrespected. We have great chemistry, we have great communication.
Okay.
However, when you do have certain standards and you know what that commitment is, sometimes we have to decide for ourselves. It seems like we're not moving in the same direction.
Okay.
And so what happens is when someone is, I don't want to say needy, but when they're in a space of just feeling a void, I think that's how some of these situations can drag on for years,
Okay.
instead of, you know what, you're a great person, I'm a great person, but if it's a kingdom marriage, then we would both be moving towards commitment in this vision. This is what I have, and so you're willing to let go even though has, has reached a certain point. But again, when you're not completely bonded to a person and you are abstinent, I think it's easier.
Mhm.
Now, that's not to say that I didn't make out and things like that. There's some things that I'm pulling back tighter on now. But
Okay.
those standards, I will say RC Blake's, I don't know if you guys have heard of Queenology, for especially for girls in college,
Mhm.
and single women, and I really think even married women could benefit. But you guys' platform, I think, does an amazing job for married couples to address those three core pillars that can really divide a marriage.
Mhm.
Someone going into a relationship, I would have to say hands down, Queenology 2.0. If I could buy it for every woman in the world to listen to those 6 modules, I did it. I cried after the first day, just by
Wow.
God's grace and opening my mind up. And then day two really teach you about your life. I just feel like people's mindsets, even it happened with me. You're married and you want to do a good
Yeah.
job. You feel like you're doing a good job by running the house. You guys have your
Yeah.
goals and you're a partner. And so you're doing good as a partner. But that's different from being a spouse. That's different from being that
There you go.
companion. That's different from still the sensuality. Because guess what? Dating after divorce, I realized these husbands are still being approached and lured in and seduced, and work wives and all this, that want this man, because what's attractive to single women on the prowl who don't respect marriage is that this man was willing to commit to someone.
Mhm.
This man has something to offer. This man has a family. And so I'm gonna do these extra things at work to have this emotional relationship, to have this mental support. But
Yeah.
guess what? Stop abusing him at home. Stop. And it can go both ways. I'm just being transparent. I was very, what's the word? I emasculated my husband when I got upset. Now I learned how to, through emotional intelligence, I've learned how to be upset, honor my emotions, but choose the behavior. I
Okay.
didn't have that going into my marriage. Emotional intelligence has changed my whole life in every relationship. Honor my emotions instead of suppressing it until I erupt. So go ahead and honor it.
Mhm.
And in honoring it, admit that it hurts. It's hard for us as women. I don't know, I'm sure for men too, but it's hard to admit when we're hurt because you feel vulnerable. And at one point in my marriage, I felt like, well, now I've made this vow and now I'm dealing with all this. I had a million choices. I'm dealing with all this. You start having resentment, you start feeling stuck, and
Mhm.
then you start to lash out
Mhm.
because you're really mad at yourself.
Yeah.
You're mad because you haven't healed. You're mad because you may have rushed into a situation. but that does not mean you cannot work through it. You work through it by still admitting you have poor reaction to your emotion. That does not give you the right to emasculate, to abuse, to stonewall, to the silent treatment. All of these things we do to someone that's our life partner. And I'm speaking from experience, guys, because you love so much. We love so much that we're investing so much into it that now we feel betrayed or hurt. It hurts so much because we wanted this to be so right. It can still be right, but you have to be honest, like you guys talk about in the book. Put it all on the table for real, because when you're out here dating after divorce, there are people on the prowl every day. There are women trying to be everything that they think that wife is not, everything they think that husband is not, to find a weak point. So if you're already divorced and you're dating, look at yourself and say, how did I contribute to the toxic behaviors in this relationship? Don't justify poor behavior, because poor behavior is still poor behavior. Emotional intelligence helps us say, you know what? With this standard and boundary, I see a red flag. I'm not going to call it a pretty pink flag. It's a red flag.
Right.
So now you've seen 2 or 3 red flags, but you want the love and relationship so bad, you're afraid to say anything that's going to jeopardize the relationship going, because you want a ring so bad. You want the title of a wife so bad. And then you're going to repeat the cycle when you get back in the relationship and erupt when other things come out that you overlooked.
Yeah. Now, something that you said was so key, because I was thinking in terms of when you're dating after divorce, are you more mindful of red flags? But then my next question is that sometimes some people can be in such a posture of wanting to move on with their lives that they overlook the red flag. And I'm wondering, is that just because the pressure to be in a relationship, or is it that that person just really truly hasn't healed, or they really may not have taken that time to invest in themselves, to develop self-love. They're more focused on the relationship or the title than actually, I'd say more invested in a title than actual having
Well,
a solid relationship themselves.
they may just don't want to be alone. They're so accustomed to having someone, and then all of a sudden, when you don't have that person, you miss the time of being together, and then all of a sudden you're alone again, and then you start going out and you see other couples together, and they look all happy and everything. You're like, I don't really
So
want.
does that open you up more so to compromising then?
I think it
Because
does.
you're making decisions based on what you see rather than what's in your best interest. What's your feedback on that?
As far as red flags, I feel like, I just feel like people have to be really careful coming straight out of the divorce who haven't taken time to heal and reflect. And it really does depend on the intensity of the relationship, and everybody's situation is different. But for me, what I'll say is I was a pleaser. I was validating myself, wanting the validation through being good, a good partner. I think when your marriage doesn't work, sometimes you are fragile, or you take a blow to, like, did I do a good job? Was I not a good, were there things I could have done better? And then I think that what happens is there are a lot of predators who recognize vulnerabilities. Um, Someone can tell very quickly. I feel like women, especially, give a lot more information too soon. They're putting everything, all of their vulnerabilities on social media. There, it's very obvious when we're wanting the attention, the sexual attention on social media. Anyone taking pictures of their breast and butt, constantly, luring men in with that. Men can read into those things as well. And so I just think, again, the self love journey is so important, because Queenology, like I said, really talks about the mindset of men and a woman seeing herself as a queen in terms of self love and self value. And so for me, I'm listening a lot more in conversations. I'm not scrutinizing, but I'm really thinking about my mindset is that a marriage is to uplift the kingdom, to build the kingdom. Well, guess what? If I really understood that about myself before, then I would have waited. I wouldn't have been so in a hurry to be in the relationship. I would be looking for certain core values, not just preferences. So
Okay.
you learn the difference. Are you attracted to certain preferences, or do you know what the core values are that you're looking for in a person? Well, that takes time, that takes patterns, that takes listening, not just being, does this person know how to play a role? Does this person know how to show up? Anyone can send their representative in your life to show up the way they think they need to show up to get what they want. But if you're listening and you're not so much in a hurry, then you're going to feel these things spiritually as well. There's going to be intentional questions that you ask
Yeah.
because you will recognize the value that you bring, and you're not going to risk those things. It took me even getting my heart broken to realize you have a lot to lose. Do you know that each time you go through a broken heart, do you see how it impacts your energy, your mind? Do you see how you have to rebuild yourself? You're not even able to function the same in your purpose. When you think about every time you rush or you don't pay attention to the flags and you end up hurt, guess what? Everything is impacted. So be responsible. Be real with yourself. What's the rush? What are you reaching for? If this person is showing you these red flags now, you're not going to call this person out on the table. You're not going to see if they're willing to work through the hard issues with you now. How can they work with you later in a marriage if they can't work through it now? But we want everything to be fairy tales, roses, and in a honeymoon phase before we get married. I think that everybody needs to wait through they go until they go through a major challenge before they're married to see how you work through that challenge.
Wow. And I think that's really, really important that you said that, because sometimes people rush into relationships and they rush, they don't really take the time to process it. And that's something that you said that was so key, because I was thinking about when you're dating after divorce, are you actually more cautious about it now? Do you really pay attention to the red flags, or do you just overlook them? And I
At
think,
first I didn't. At first I didn't.
okay.
When I first started dating, but right, this is another thing. I start seeing somebody during my divorce, which I would never recommend, because I told myself I filed my pay. I would not date or interact until I filed. To me, that was official. Now where I am spiritually, no, you were still married.
All right. Gotcha.
Okay. So that's what I had to look at. And then when you start having sex with this person, so I had sex with that guy. What I look at, I was low hanging fruit, and I was a diamond. I was like a butterfly that he would never have access to had I not been so fragile with a broken wing. So you got to think about, if you're this at your strongest and clearest mindset, you're flying, you're doing your purpose, you're taking good care of yourself, you are filling your own cup. You're doing the best. It's not perfection, but you're in a space where you're not reaching and latching on to a person. But when you're so like waiting on the phone call and you're in this vulnerable space, I was overlooking those red flags because I liked the good morning, beautiful text, and I liked the conversation, and I liked the whining and dining. And then you like the companionship. Like Eric said, you don't want to be alone. This person's validating you. They're validating your beauty. They're validating your body. They're validating your mind. They already know you're an amazing person. They want to scoop you in real quick during your fragile stage, because when they scoop you up and you're married, when you wake up, when you wake all the way up and you're strong, and you look at how this person really courted you and got you into this marriage at your low point, instead of you being clear,
Mhm.
then that's where that resentment comes up, which is why I said earlier, I just believe that like some marriages kind of came in that way with
Mhm.
people really just feeling a void and moving so quick. And so with dating after divorce and having sex, these are soul ties, you're vulnerable. It got to a point where I felt like I was dealing with gaslighting and narcissism. Guys, as strong as I am, as smart as I am with business, as loving as I am, I was in tears. I just remember being in tears, feeling stuck in a web. It felt like a butterfly that got stuck in a web. And
Mhm.
now this person has literally attached themselves to you mentally and you can't get out because guess what? You're still healing from a marriage. You
Yeah.
had no business being in this entanglement. That's the word, everybody. But guess what? I could sit here and be the victim, but guess what? I was entangling with the sex. I was entangling wanting to go out to eat. I was liking the roses coming to my house. Buy your own roses. Go work out. Journal. Look at build yourself up and be that strong woman and that beautiful butterfly that's listening and also leaving room for God to reveal things. I was not operating that way.
Wow. Now, you said, wow, I'm processing it. I know that, one of our core values is expressing what you expect.
Right.
So when you're involved or you transition over to dating after divorce, how comfortable are you, or what pattern of growth did you notice in terms of expressing what you expect going forward? Because, like you said, some people may be more guarded with their heart, some might be just broken and they're open or more susceptible to different things. Like you mentioned, you wind up, some marriages and relationships come out of that brokenness. So when you're dating after divorce, do you find yourself more comfortable, more emboldened as far as expressing, saying, look, I recognize who I am, I recognize what I bring to the table. So this stuff that you're doing, no, I'm gonna need you to stop. But where are you in that?
The woman I am right now, and I'm still growing, I'm I'm very clear.
Okay.
I'm very much so direct,
Okay.
but I'm not laying out this checklist. I'm
Okay.
observing
Okay.
because it's easy for someone to show up the way you tell them to show up
Hmm.
versus you honoring and seeing what you see and processing and praying through what you see. And as the red flags reveal themselves,
Hmm.
addressing them. So,
Gotcha.
not necessarily bolting away, it
Okay.
depends on what it is. If it's
Gotcha.
something that is a character trait that this person is 30, 40, 50 years old, this is who they are.
Wow.
It's learning to accept a person. And if this never changes, is this the thing that I'm willing to be flexible on and love this person?
Gotcha.
Whether that be an addiction, whether that, Derek Jackson is someone in my book, Married, Divorce, and Dating. I haven't marketed it now because I'm still like making sure. I want to just make sure I go back and it's something that can really help people without it having any of my personal, like, just baggage in there. Because I think as you heal, it's less about the other person and like,
Mhm.
what did I learn? These are the resources. So, Derek Jackson, most people know about, he says for women, he speaks specifically to women that women should really make sure they get to know a guy and his vices. So
Okay.
we're looking at all these preferences and what someone brings to the table. But can you create a safe space between the two of you for this man and this woman to share their vices, demons, addictions, things that they need, things that they struggle with? People aren't having these conversations when they're dating. These are the kind of conversations that I want to have before I'm married to someone because that addiction, may send Sally running.
Right.
But with the work I do, that might be something that, I'm like, well, what's the root of that? Where did that come from? And it may be something that's not a deal breaker for me, where it may be a deal breaker for someone else. But when we're just, wanting to be with someone so badly, we're not even creating safe spaces to know what each other's struggles and vices are, because every single person has something that they struggle with, and it's going to show up. It's going to show up.
Absolutely. So would you suggest, or what's your feedback on when couples should go transition, I think, from dating to something a little more serious? Because a lot of times they jump into these relationships or these commitments and they haven't been together long enough to even experience that person's vices, because initially they're going to put their best foot forward.
Right.
But after a season, you get to see, and when you start having those conversations, you get to see the real person. And that's why, even I have a teenage daughter, and I've shared with her. I said, look, when people are getting to know you, sometimes just sit back and let them talk and observe what is coming out of their mouth. What are they sharing with you? What are their goals and aspirations? But how do they think of women in general? How do they respond to certain things? And just watch and see. And then she came back to me. She goes, Mom, I am so glad you told me that, because this person got on the phone and they just said, and I realized, no, I can't deal with that. No. So to start developing a filter at 18, because it's different now, because if you look at it, we went in the midst of a quarantine. So that should have had a degree of impact on dating life, because they weren't actually able to. I think it's a good thing, being that people can't rush into the physical part,
Right.
because you weren't around each other. So you had to have these conversations on a regular basis. You had to get creative with dating, be it via Zoom or,
Facebook or what have you.
Facebook, what have you.
But what you said was really key, because if you let a person talk, they're going to talk and tell you what kind of person and how they think.
Yes.
Or, they may put on their best face at first, and all of a sudden you start hearing F-bombs and curse words and B-bombs, and because at first you didn't hear it, they were so respectful and everything. They want to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And then after a while, when you just let them talk and you ask them a few questions and they talk, and all of a sudden their true inner demons come out and they show and manifest themselves. And then you see what type of person they are. Then maybe they're talking about their parents or their mother. Or maybe they even start talking about their past relationship and how
that happened to me.
Really?
Someone took me to breakfast from my past, because typically old friends, it's easier for I don't get a lot of guys who follow me on social media to come at me really sideways, because they can already, men, again, like I said, they will study you, and they know at what point are you putting yourself out there as low hanging fruit, or are you a woman that's going to listen and want to have a conversation and pay attention? That doesn't mean that you're still not going to have insecurities or vulnerabilities, because I'm still learning. But I think it's easier for someone that's been a past classmate to reach out, or a past person we dated. And so that I get sometimes more of that. And so I went to breakfast with a guy from my past, a past friend, like puppy love time frame. And immediately, first interaction, I'm not really throwing a lot out, we're just casually talking. And his past relationship came up. The way he talked about her, as calling her out of her name, that be this.
Yeah.
And, the energy that was behind it, I listened and I was like, wow, did you feel that about her before you guys moved in together? So what was it about her that you love to make you want to move in with her? His whole energy shifted. He was very victim minded. And I really got to see an energy and spirit within him, where when you say, are you clear on your boundaries and standards? He's someone that was also like, oh, what kind of phone you have? Oh, you don't have the iPhone. Well, if we're going to be chatting, I would want to get you this so we can FaceTime. Okay, so now they put the money out, they put the possessions out, and young girls and women who are not in that space of doing for themselves, oh, they say that, oh, you're going to get me a phone. honey, they just
Mhm.
put a leash around you.
Yeah.
So, they have access. Now you want FaceTime to see who else is in your environment. Where are you? But they're not looking at it that way. They see it as this so cool gesture. Oh, he's offering to do this and that. And then with his language, it was such a turn off. I
Mhm.
told him, honestly, guys, I didn't go out with him again. I just kind of just cut it off.
Yeah.
But God told me I had woken up from a dream and God had revealed my new life to me and some things from my past that I had not fully addressed properly or fully forgiven. That's why I
Mhm.
say just keeping time to yourself and processing is important. With that, I realized I'm doing the kingdom a disservice
Mhm.
by essentially just leaving contact with him without telling him why.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
I had to go back and say, hey, when we reconnected, I could tell you were very interested in me. I enjoyed, the breakfast. But when you said this, when I noticed this, I don't use this type of language.
Mhm.
This is not in alignment with my belief system. And, I'm not interested in moving forward. But I feel like if you don't tell someone, how can he do self reflection? This is what I don't think that we realize as women. And I'm Eric. I know, men, I'm just speaking from what being a woman is that as women, I believe that, and I'm not saying it's our responsibility, but I feel like we have more kings that are not being called to rise up to their kingship because women are laying on their back easily.
Mhm.
Women are not setting the standard.
Yes.
Women are giving a freak show for free porn on social media.
Yeah.
And when you realize a man, if this man could encounter a queen who is sexy still, that doesn't mean you got to dress up like a usher. You can be sexy. Michelle Obama does a good job, in my opinion. Nia Long,
Mhm.
it's a way to be sexy. But guess what?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, if a man has never encountered a queen and he does, that man, look at you, Dr. Sakeisha. Even with my ex-husband, I don't feel we were compatible. I feel like there were things we respected about each other. But guess what? When you still
Mhm.
recognize a queen, that man is not letting you go. And so if that man has to
Mhm.
become better, if that man has to stop certain
Yeah.
behaviors to be in your company, if that man has to do certain things and he does not have 24-hour access, when you do step back, when things are not in alignment, when you feel disrespected, when you feel that this was out of line, a woman knows how to sit on that throne. You don't go chasing behind someone else. You don't go lowering your standards, begging somebody to come through your gate. You know, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you look at yourself as a garden, I had to look at myself and I cry sometimes when it's something you want to work out, when you invested and
Mhm.
you see this is a good guy. This is a king. I really hope that nothing shows up. You are just being honest. You're like, this would be beautiful. But then guess what?
Mhm.
When it does, I would rather lay there and cry and be disappointed, but hold true to that standard and
Yeah.
value and give that man a standard to rise up to. And
Yeah.
if it takes you 6 months, a year to work through that, and you reconnect with me and see if I'm still available, that's where you let God work through somebody and let
Mhm.
them purify their heart and their past and say, man, she was good to me. She
Yeah.
loved me, but she loved herself. I
Yeah.
can't be in her company with that nonsense. I got to go fix this and hope she's still available when I resurface.
Yeah.
That to me helps some men grow into their kingship.
Yeah.
But guess what? We are not staying true to what we deserve, and we're not even giving ourselves what we're telling somebody else to give us. Do you buy yourself flowers? Do you have can you afford the lifestyle you want this other person to provide for you? Like
Mhm.
all these things. It's like, come on, let's just be honest.
Wow.
And so Queenology. I watched over 50 of those videos. I've watched over 50 of those YouTube videos. And Tony Gaskin, I watched over probably 70 of his videos. And
Mhm.
Derek Jackson, I watched about 50 of his videos.
Yeah.
So you got to think about that year of intense getting out of my own way.
Yeah.
I'm not
Mhm.
a bitter person. I'm not a bitter person that's like all men are dogs and all that. I start looking at myself because you attract something different the more you evolve.
Right. That's what you were talking about. That is very key for women to hone on to and to learn is that, like you were saying, if you're on social media and you're showing yourself professional, now look at yourself. You're professional, you're well dressed, you just look like $1 million and very professional. And you look like a woman who holds herself to, have high esteem for yourself.
Yes.
And so a man not going to be coming at you sideways or really just crooked ways. He automatically sees, oh, that's a good woman there. That's wife material.
Mm-hmm.
But then like you were talking about, the woman is all she's doing is accenting her, taking pictures of her breasts and her butt, and she's just always dressed and provocative. The man automatically say, oh, I can just come to her in any kind of way. Like, their speech is going to be differently. But when they see a woman who does not, they have self-esteem and they present themselves with class, they automatically know she's out of my league. I'm not going to even approach her. You know what I mean?
And I'm
So
not saying, we don't do a little sexy tease every now and then
oh,
on
oh
social
yeah,
media to say we got it. But I'm
oh
just saying,
sure,
if women really valued it, you wouldn't
right.
just throw it out for free. But this is the other flip side. They're dating after divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got the church dudes that come with us with the scriptures.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, I've gotten scriptures in the DM, and people who then, if they hear me talking about the kingdom marriage and the kingdom man and this, then they come at you with that. And you know what? You
With the
still
smart
have
food.
to listen. You have to still listen because um men approach me, they have a 1-year-old child. I'm like, you have a 1-year-old and you're already out pursuing someone else. Have you really given a chance for that relationship to work? I am pro family. And then I'll give them a prophetic word that God put on my heart for them to go and try to heal that relationship. But I want to share something where a guy broke down to me in my dating after divorce.
Okay.
Okay.
A guy told me this, and it shifted my ideology. He says to me, T, um, how did that dude? He saw me on social media. I was hosting an event. I don't know if y'all remember, I had this African gown made, and
Mhm.
everybody just, yeah, it was just a lot of response to it because, anyway, there was someone else that saw me that night. They were a part of the event or organization. And like, we're both dressed up. We're both a part of this. Can I take you to dinner? The dinner was nice, but it was such a show. Like the guy presented himself, just it was an act. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'm getting text messages. This guy is just infatuated. I'm getting text messages and songs at 3 o'clock in the morning the same night. And I had gone, I felt safe. I had taken a picture of the license plate. My girlfriends, everybody was at the event with us. And I'm like, y'all think I should go? Like, this is so random. And everybody's like, live a little. You're so blah, blah, blah. I'm rigid, live a little, go have fun. You're dressed up. What harm could this person, okay, was infatuated, sending me all, like by 6 o'clock, I had gotten so love bombed.
Oh,
Like
wow.
that's a thing. That's a thing that happens. You can get so love bombed and infatuated, and guys who may have money and can wow you, like you're all of a sudden in this thing, and y'all aren't just met, and so now you're just on this high. Anyway, I end up needing to block the guy within that day. And it's so interesting because I don't think would have caught it if I wasn't spiritually paying attention,
Yeah.
and if I was looking for somebody that could save me, impress me, buy me, all those things. And so a guy friend that did have a crush on me, but very smart. You'd be awesome to talk to. He has a podcast. He said to me, T, what's that picture I saw on social media. I said, yeah. I said, he been texting me and stuff all night. He was like, what? How did he even get your number? How did he even get you to dinner on the first day? Like, you don't even know this person. He was like, you gave him all that access and he just met you.
Mhm.
And I was like, I mean, what? So he broke it down. He said, listen, women are like, and I'm not saying this, I'm just giving the analogy. He said, in his opinion, women are like different corporations. So you have McDonald's
Mhm.
and you have Google
Mhm.
and Apple. What you have to do to get a job at McDonald's, this is no judgment to degrade. It was just using it as an example. What you have to do to get a job at McDonald's, you might be able to show up with your resume, have filled out the application, have filled out. It's going to be easy to get that job. When you get that job, think about standards. You can be on your phone. You're not going to get fired. You can do a no call, no show. They need you so bad at that job, they still going to let you walk in after a no call, no show.
That's true.
Relate that to dating. You fall off the grid for 2 or 3 days. I haven't heard from you. You out there courting somebody else, but you can just show up. Maybe I got an attitude, but I'm still on the phone. You still got access. You can still take me out this weekend. You try that at Google to even get on the premises of Google. You in a waiting list to even get the interview. By the time you get on the phone to get the interview, you bring in your A game. Even to get in there, you got probably 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phone interviews before you can even get a face-to-face interview.
That's
When
true.
you get the face-to-face interview, they know you're coming. We've made arrangements. You've already invested so much before we're on a physical face-to-face with each other
Mhm.
that security guard knows you're coming. They're giving you access now to the premises. So you're
Mhm.
not going to spoil it as you would as something you can walk in and out of. You might still be performing. You might still be acting, but you've invested to
Yeah.
get to this point. And this person, because they value the corporation, they
Right.
know the benefits package, they know the culture, they know everything that you are going to also get if you commit to this role, right? They're not hungry for you. They're observing you. They're looking for everything that could be a risk and jeopardize what they already have. Are you going to be an asset to that corporation, or are you going to be a risk and liability to that corporation? So you get the job. Let's
I
say you
like
get the
that.
job. Now you get the job and you know the benefits package, you know the culture, but you get comfortable. You're gonna have some warnings.
Mm.
They're gonna be addressed. If you get put on probation, we might not be talking for 2 weeks. I might need time to think about this. I might need time to pray about this because it's a lot on the line here. We both had an agreement coming into this. Those agreements and boundaries, this is marriage. Those, it could be in the exclusive or marriage. It doesn't matter. Right now, we're clear on what this agreement was through communication. And now that you think you have the job, a violation, you can't steal from Google and keep that job.
That's
You're
Right.
true.
not going to go and cheat and it not be a repercussion because we have too much invested on the line. So we're going to sit and work through this. And it's not just a quick reprimand, a mark on your and a ding, and then it's over with. Now, what happens if you do a violation at a company like that? You are on probation for real. You don't
Yeah,
fix it by doing a good job on that project. You have to build trust again. You
that's
have,
right.
but guess what? It's worth it because you want to go and get anything that anybody can have, run through, show up, still keep the job, or do you want the benefits that come with this corporation, the peace of mind that come with this corporation, the 401k, the stocks, the guess what? What happens? But guess what happens when people have to say, you know what? You violated. This violation was so real that we're not going to make it to marriage. This was the exclusive agreement, but I was observing and you were observing, not being hungry that I don't have
You know,
to
that's
fight.
a really great analogy. Oh man, I don't think we want to thank you for joining us today on our broadcast.
Let's keep the conversation going. You can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or subscribe to our YouTube channel under Marriage Can Win.
Also, you can join us 24/7 on our Marriage Can Win podcast at www.themarriagecanwinshow.com, and also connect to us at marriagescanwin.com.
Remember, you can be the change you want to see in your relationship. Until next time, see you soon.